Alright, and we back on the forecast. So out in Sacramento, a 22-year-old brother, Stephon Clark, was shot at 20 times in his own grandmother's backyard and killed. So let's go back and see what led the Sacramento police to shoot this young brother in his own grandmother's backyard 20 times.
Hi, what's going on there?
Yeah, it's guys going down the street breaking windows of cars. He busted both my truck windows out. He busted in the people's backyard right now, across the street from my place. He busted two of my windows out and he broke the car's window out across the street from me.
Okay.
Pointed in people's backyard right now.
Do you know which yard he's in, what the address is?
Oh, I can't see the address.
Is he black, white, Hispanic, Asian?
He had a hoodie on. I couldn't tell, man.
We have two ground units coming, too, that are on Meadowview right now, so they're about a block and a half away.
Yep, the dogs are going crazy in the backyard, so I think he's still there.
Good.
Just broke the window, running south, running to the south. So let's get more units back up. Running south, he just broke the window, I believe, on the house. But he's one house to the south right now, gonna run. Okay, he's running towards the front yard. All I can tell is he's got a hoodie on. He's running towards the front yard of 29th Street. 29th Street. He's looking into another car that's in between the fence and the front yard. So ground unit Scott, so it looks like might be getting one at gunpoint. Copy, one at gunpoint. Okay, let's get a perimeter on this. Guy's running south. He's going to hit this field. He's at one further house to 1 yard to the south. 2 units trying to catch him.
Hi, Coordinator, go ahead.
Shots fired, shots fired.
Confirm, 916-650.
Show me your hands! Gun! 5-7, shots fired, subject down. Show me your hands! I see your hands! 5-7, he's down. No movement. We're gonna need additional units. Come in from the west to east of this yard. Let's see your hands! You alright? You hit?
Yeah, I'm good.
Alright.
He was still pointing
Oh shit.
when I saw again. You alright, dude?
Yeah, I'm alright. I don't think I've hit or anything. Alright.
I got him at gunpoint, dude.
Alright. You wanna, what you wanna
do
do?
a tactical reload, okay?
Alright, copy.
I think I shot about 5 times. Stand by.
Stand by on that. He's still down, he's not moving. We can't see the gun.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Alright, I'm gonna reload.
Alright,
Okay?
go. I got you. Go.
You got a light on him?
Got him. Negative. Neither one of us are hit. We're okay. Suspect's down.
Good.
Good?
Yep.
Alright.
So the police got a call that somebody in a hoodie was going around breaking car windows. So then a police helicopter spots Stephon Clark in the backyard of his grandmother's house, and they told the police they saw him pick up a toolbar and they thought he broke a window on the house. So when these two cops run into the backyard of the house he lives in, they don't identify themselves as cops. They just come in the yard and start yelling, and you don't know who they are. He was in his own backyard at 9 or 9:30 at night when two people with guns just run into your yard and start saying, "Show me your hands, show me your hands." And then one of the cops yells gun, and they shoot this man within seconds of running into his backyard. Then after they shoot him 20 times, they're still yelling, "Show your hands, show your hands." And as this young brother is laying on the ground bleeding to death, then they decide to take their time and be tactical about it. And they took their time to get this young brother some medical help. Then come to find out, the only thing this young brother Stephon Clark had in his hands was a cell phone. A white cell phone at that they mistook for a gun.
And in other news today, disturbing video has just been released of a cop fatally shooting an unarmed man who ended up dying right in his grandparents' backyard in Sacramento, California. Now the grieving family is coming forward and speaking with Inside Edition about what happened.
It's the latest controversial police shooting.
Show me your hands, gun, gun, gun!
22-year-old Stephon Clark was shot to death in his own backyard, and all he had in his hand was a cell phone. We spoke to his grieving family, including his fiancée.
I talked to his mother, and they told me that it was him, that they were at the scene, that it was him and he was gone.
Shocking images from a police helicopter were just released by Sacramento PD.
Guys going down the street breaking windows of cars.
Police sent an aerial unit after a neighbor's call to 911.
Just broke the window, running south.
As the chopper tracked a suspect from above, 2 cops on the ground gave chase.
Show me your hands! Stop! Stop!
Then one officer claimed he saw a weapon.
Show me your hands, gun, gun, gun!
A hail of gunfire followed.
5-7 shots fired, 7-8 down.
20 rounds were fired, and Clark went down.
Something in his hands. It looked like a gun from our perspective.
That gun turned out to be a white cell phone. Clark was handcuffed and left bleeding for 7 minutes. He died right there in his grandmother's backyard.
We want everybody to see the video, and that's why we made it a priority, so that everybody has the opportunity to see what we have the opportunity to see.
6 minutes after the shooting, this happens. One of the police officers says, "Mute."
Hey, you.
The body cam stops recording audio.
We need to hear why the video was cut off. Why did they make all the choices that they made?
Police say Clark was the suspect who smashed in the windows, but his family doesn't believe it. They say there's a simple reason why he was in the backyard.
What we do is that we knock on the door. If they don't hear it, we go around the back window where my grandpa's master bedroom is, and we knock on that door, and they open the garage.
Show me your hands, gun, gun, gun!
He was fantastic. He was smart. He was an athlete. He was just great.
Both officers are on paid administrative leave pending the investigation.
So apparently this young brother was holding a cell phone like he was holding a gun or something, and they got it confused. By the way, that was after the police helicopter said he picked up a crowbar. So I guess that crowbar turned into a gun by the time the police got there. And so they were left with no other choice but to shoot at this young brother. And then it turns out he didn't have a gun or a crowbar or anything but a cell phone. By the way, they were responding to a call about a kid breaking car windows, and it ends up with police officers firing 20 times. So the cops were given a paid vacation, and they're already starting the usual narrative to justify this murder, because apparently if you just committed mass murder and the cops know you have guns, you're safer than if a cop suspects you of breaking car windows and thinks you have a gun. But this is nothing new. They criminalize us when they murder us, and they sympathize with each other when they murder other people.
What I can tell you, having listened to that recording, he does not at all mention anything about terrorism, nor does he mention anything about hate. It is the outcry of a very challenged young man talking about challenges in his personal life.
All right, this shit is ridiculous. No angel, thug, combative, career criminal, disrespectful. Were these terms used to describe evil white criminals who massacred their fellow Americans, or were these terms used to describe unarmed black men and children who were killed at the hands of police? Wait, hold on, what about these terms? Troubled child, nerdy, quiet boy, unemployed kid, clean-cut American, boy with dry-witted humor. So what about those terms? Were they used to describe white terrorists or black victims? The answer is, of course you already know what the fucking answer is, because this is the United States of America, the only country in the world where you can carry out 5 explosions, killing 2 people, and still be given the benefit of the doubt and depicted in a sympathetic light. As long as you're white, of course. But if you happen to be black and have your life taken unjustly, you will be scrutinized, vilified, and have your name dragged through the dirt. It has been nearly 48 hours since Mark Condit blew himself up after being tracked down by law enforcement and, as we have come to expect in this country, the humanization of a man who blew 2 black Americans to pieces has been gut-churningly despicable. From law enforcement choosing to highlight
challenged young man
to a full New York Times article portraying the Austin bomber as a quiet, nerdy, godly young man, we have seen whiteness at work on steroids. And not only that, some conservative mouthpieces, take a wild guess who, took to Twitter to give the voice to the real victims in this act of terror. Wait for it, Christians. That's right, our resident hypocrite Tammy made sure to skip her usual thoughts and prayers for the actual victims who died at the hands of this monster, and instead posted an article discussing how Christianity was the real victim. This coming from the same person who has built a career fear-mongering against all Muslims whenever an Islamist extremist commits an act of terror. But this all falls in line with the same deflecting, humanizing and downplaying of the evil actions of a troubled young man. A troubled young white man, that is. So I ask, where was the stern defense of a young man like Trayvon Martin, who, by the way, did not try to blow anyone up? In fact, all he wanted to do was walk home, but God forbid he put his hood up, right? For that, he was lambasted as a disrespectful thug by many of those in the media, who then offered an actual terrorist a pass. I can't believe this has to be clarified. But I guess we'll save the best juxtaposition for last, shall we? It so happened that on the same day a white suicide bomber decided to take his own life, 2 Sacramento police officers opted to take the life of 22-year-old Stephon Clark, firing a mere 20 shots at him in his own grandmother's backyard. Cops said they mistook Clark's cell phone for a gun, and then later a crowbar. I mean, I'm no tech expert here, but I've never seen a crowbar that looks even remotely like an iPhone, have you? But nonetheless, having both these stories circulate at the same time was a perfect example of whiteness at work. On the one hand, we had headlines reading, "Robbery suspect gunned down," and on the other hand, we heard, "Nerdy young man." Wake up! The way this country continues to humanize white evil and vilify black victims shows how far we have to go in not only fixing the engraved racial bias that still dictates the perception of people in this country and in the media, but in truly understanding the threat white terror poses to us. And to do that, we have to condemn it with the same furiosity it deserves, not wrap it in privilege.
But they've been criminalizing us for so long just to humanize the things that they have done and justify it. They start to believe it themselves. Now it's second nature to them. And in some cases, now it's second nature to us too. That's why these same cops who took forever to find out anything about the bombings that was going on in Texas, and then try to humanize this terrorist and calling them mentally ill, but these same police turn around and charge the football player Michael Bennett with a felony for something they have no evidence of that happened at the Super Bowl. Now, the police chief, Art Acevedo, who was talking about it took a while because he had to prioritize it, that's because he has too many problems in his own police department to be dealing with. It's much stuff that go on with the police departments in Texas, but this brother was one of the football players that kneeled and even had a run-in with the Las Vegas police when they arrested him for being the big bad black man. But this brother, Michael Bennett, had the audacity to call him out. And these people never forget, and they always hold on to a grudge. That's why they still talking about OJ 25 years later. They arrested this brother just to prove a point. They're telling all these players, kneel again and see what happened. Now, the dominant society has no problem responding with zero tolerance policies because they'll do whatever they have to do to maintain their position. Until we can learn how to respond with the same zero tolerance policy when it comes to them spilling our blood, instead of begging for justice and asking that they change. Why would they change? Our oppression is a $1 zillion industry. Either we put aside our tribalism, our differences, and do what we gotta do, or we continue to let the same thing happen over and over again.
Sacramento police released video of the shooting death of Stephon Clark, who was shot by police in his backyard.
Show me your hands! Let's see your hands!
He was unarmed. Here's what police body camera and helicopter footage shows.
911, what's location of the emergency?
Guys going down the street breaking windows of cars. He busted both my truck windows out. He busted in the people's backyard right now.
8 minutes later, officers arrive at a house in the area.
Can we check your backyard real quick? Supposedly somebody just broke some windows over here. I got this corner if you want to fan that way real quick. Yeah.
At this point, it's unclear where the suspect is.
He didn't come this way, dude.
Moments later, the helicopter alerts the officers that they've spotted an individual.
Running to the south.
This is 22-year-old Stephon Clark. They run to Clark's home. The officers spot Clark.
Hey! Show me your hands! Stop! Stop! 57 south. Show me your hands! Gun!
At this moment, Clark moves toward the officers.
Show me your hands! Gun, gun, gun!
Then Clark drops to his hands and knees. They continue to fire.
57 shots fired, 7 stay down. Show me your hands! Let's see your hands!
2 minutes and 50 seconds later, the officers try to communicate with Clark.
Hey, can you hear us? Police department, can you hear us?
We need to know if you're okay. We need to get you medics, but we can't go over there to get you help unless we know you don't have the weapon.
5 minutes after the last bullet, they go check on him.
If one of you guys want to go hands, cover him.
There was a cell phone next to Clark's body. No guns were found. Officers involved have been put on paid leave as district and city attorneys investigate.
Daniel Hahn says that the department will conduct a thorough investigation into the fatal shooting of Stephon Clark. An expert in officer-involved shootings who watched that body camera video with us today said that given the circumstances, any officer could have reacted that way.
There was about a 1 to 2 second delay before the first shots.
Ryan Getty, a police officer of 34 years and an assistant professor at Sacramento State's Division of Criminal Justice, reviews the helicopter and body camera footage released in the fatal shooting of Stephon Clark.
My initial reaction is I could easily see it happening to any officer.
Getty says the body camera video shows the physiological effects of chasing a suspect.
He started running towards the scene, which automatically, physiologically, starts to get the heart rate increasing, the blood pressure increasing.
The career officer and teacher says that can lead to tunnel vision.
Sensory perception starts to go. Officers may get tunnel vision. I'm not saying that that officer did, but typically officers start to get tunnel vision, stressed. Their fine motor skills start to go.
In the midst of the chase, an officer shouts his command. The suspect, Clark in this case, is out of sight, and Getty says officers don't know what he might do next or whether he may be armed. They see what they believe is a weapon, leading to shots fired.
Show me your hands! Gun, gun, gun!
Most of them have told me they've fired 2 or 3, at the most 5, when they've fired 10, 15 rounds.
Chief Daniel Hahn calls the situation tragic and says the department will conduct a thorough investigation as the public gets the chance to view the videos.
Where there's a void of facts, people fill those facts in, and oftentimes because they weren't there, they're not accurate. Now with a video, somebody can watch it themselves and they see visually for themselves what happened.
And we asked Chief Daniel Hahn about the portion of the video where you hear the officer turn off the audio on his body camera. Chief Hahn says he doesn't know why the officer did that, but that will be a part of the investigation.
Well, there's an arrest warrant out for former Seahawks defensive end Michael Bennett. A Texas grand jury indicted him for allegedly injuring an elderly paraplegic worker at Super Bowl 51 in Houston. Bennett was watching his brother play in the game for the New England Patriots, and when the game ended, investigators say Bennett shoved his way onto the field where players were gathering to celebrate.
Officials say security personnel told Bennett he had to use a different entrance to access the field, but instead they say he pushed through locked doors and 2 employees, including the 66-year-old disabled woman.
Mr. Bennett also, after pushing the females, both the 28-year-old white female and the 66-year-old paraplegic black female, stated to them, "You all must know who I am, and I can own this MF. I'm going onto the field whether you like it or not."
Well, Chief Aceveda says Bennett sprained the woman's shoulder. He's facing a charge of injury to the elderly, which carries a penalty of up to 10 years in prison and a $10,000 fine.
I just want to say that Mr. Bennett may think that because he's an NFL player and because some time passed, because we have to prioritize our cases, he may have thought that, number one, rules don't apply to him. Number two, he doesn't have to respect the dignity of a paraplegic woman who's trying to earn a living, and another woman, a 66-year-old paraplegic woman, and another woman. He may believe that he doesn't have to answer the police officer who tries to very professionally detain him and tells him you and just marches on. But I'm here to say that I'm very proud of the fact that our department took this case seriously like it should have.
Prosecutors say they are working with Bennett's lawyer about his surrender. Bennett was traded to the Philadelphia Eagles earlier this month. The Eagles did release a statement this afternoon saying they're aware of the situation and are gathering more information.
Dressed alike in Superman shirts, mother and daughter are booked into the Stevens County Jail.
So wait. They married each other?
Because they're in their right mind to marry their mom.
The mother and daughter married each other?
Yeah.
Huh.
Patricia and Misty Spann married earlier this year. A DHS and police investigation revealed this pair is actually mother and daughter, blood relatives who somehow married in Comanche County. Patricia Spann lost custody of Misty and 2 other children when they were young. They're adopted by their grandmother. Patricia Spann insisted to investigators she didn't have contact with her kids until 2 years ago. And when she reunited with Misty Spann, her daughter, they hit it off.
You know, more stuff happens in small towns and people know.
Paige Watson knew Misty Spann from high school.
When I went to school with her, she had a girlfriend, and they both worked at Sonic.
People in the front yard of the Spann's home ran inside once they saw News Channel 4 pull up. Neighbors say the Spanns are new to the block. Court records show an annulment between Patricia Spann and her son in 2010. They were married for 2 years.
Well, I don't know if incarceration is really going to teach them anything, but there should be some sort of punishment or deterrent.
Bond was set today at $10,000 for each of the Spanns. DA Jason Hicks told me this afternoon it is one of the most bizarre cases he's seen in his career. In Oklahoma, incest is a felony, and those convicted can be punished up to 10 years in prison.
Where are you guys going from here?
What was the problem? Why did you pull me over?
Why did I pull you over? Because we have a lot of problem with fraud rental cars in here. And I see you guys all split when I come into the lot and the way you guys were parked, so I just want to make sure that it was a legit
fraud?
rental. No.
Oh, okay.
No, you're fine.
Okay. So I'm free to go, right?
Yeah, you're free to go.
Okay, thank you.
All right, where
Appreciate
are you guys heading?
I'm being detained or I'm free to go?
No, I'm asking you a question, but you can be pulled out of the car and I can search it if you really want.
How is that?
Any way I want. Doesn't mean I can use what I find, but I can do it. So you want to do that? You want to play that game, a little hard ass, or you want to go back to Rick?
All I'm saying is...
Don't talk shit,
I'm not talking shit.
You guys are all over there, a bunch of tatted up gangsters and everything, hanging out.
I'm not a gangster.
Yeah, but you're all tatted up. You're sitting there.
My son's name? My son's name?
You can't even park the damn car right. You're over there. She's all tatted and everything else. You're not even from around here, all right? So don't come here and talk shit.
I was taking a picture. How am I talking shit to you, officer?
You're talking shit. Am I being detained or what? I told you could go, right? So go.
All right.
Get the fuck out of here.
All right.